I don't think anybody's surprised that the Chicago Bears are being basically attached to rumors involving every quarterback that either is available or every QB that could potentially be available via trade, etc. this offseason. Like, everybody with a fully functioning brain knows that Trubisky sucks. You even see as these different names of quarterbacks are being attached to the Bears in terms of potential rumors, you're seeing players on the Bears team weighing in, talking about these other quarterbacks, which tells you all you need to know about Trubisky and Fool's Gold, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Nick Foles, F-A-I-L-S. So, we've seen it like before Matthew Stafford got traded. The Bears were being mentioned in some of those rumors. We certainly saw plenty of rumors about them being interested in Carson Wentz and making an offer for Carson Wentz and potentially being in the market for Carson Wentz. And ultimately found out that he was going to Indianapolis, which I don't think ultimately that surprised a lot of people. It seemed like it was the best fit for all parties involved. The Bears have been attached to rumors involving Derek Carr and whether or not he might be potentially available on the trade market. And, of course, in the meantime, you've had plenty of focus and conversation about Deshaun Watson and his situation in Houston and what's going to happen there. And, is he going to get traded? Is he going to stand firm? Like, is he not going to play? Are the Texans not going to trade him? So, lots of combustibility left to go. And it feels like every single name that could potentially be available on the trade market, you're seeing Chicago's name attached to them in some way, shape, or form because, admittedly, they don't have a choice. Those dumbasses won just too many games this year to be in a prime position to pick the young quarterback like they should be able to if the year would have went the way it needed to go. But no, we just had to go 8-8 and be a 7 seed and get embarrassed on national TV in New Orleans against a washed-up Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. Because that mattered so much, right? And now you've got a lame duck general manager, a lame duck head coach, which of course is going to naturally lead to desperation. They're trying to save their jobs. It's basic survival instincts. I understand it. I get it. But the problem is desperation leads to dumb moves. It does it in our lives, and it certainly does it here when you talk about football. So now that Carson Wentz isn't available anymore, things have really seemed to cool off with Derek Carr. Matthew Stafford's not available anymore. The whole Deshaun Watson crap's in a really big holding pattern. You're not really hearing much about the Jets when it comes to Sam Darnold. Sounds like Jimmy G is going to be the guy in San Francisco in 2021 until he isn't. Now the next big name that's buzzing out there is Russell Wilson. Let Russ cook. That Russell Wilson. While he hasn't reportedly asked for a trade, he has indicated that he is open to trade if it came to that. But that it's only to one of 4 teams. The Dallas Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chicago Bears. What? Why would you limit or restrict yourself in terms of the potential teams you want to go to? Furthermore, if you're thinking about teams that you want to put on a list, why in the hell would you want to put any of them on the damn list? Now, Dallas, potentially I could see, because it's America's team. Your star will be bigger and brighter playing in Dallas than it will be anywhere else. And if you're Russell Wilson, you're looking and saying, look at the endorsements and stuff that a Dak Prescott gets. I'm better than Dak Prescott. I'm a champion unlike Dak Prescott. I could come to Dallas and be a real megastar in the league, in the face of the league. I get it. Until you realize that they haven't been to a Super Bowl in over 2.5 decades and that Jerry Jones is a toxic owner when it comes to actually running the organization. And furthermore, if you look at the current environment for the Cowboys, How much of a real upgrade would Russell Wilson be over Dak Prescott? Furthermore, assuming Dak returns to health, why would Russ be so urgently desiring to work with Mike McCarthy? Ask Aaron Rodgers how that goes. That makes no sense. The New Orleans Saints, the cap-strapped New Orleans Saints where you have to follow in the footsteps of Drew Brees? No thanks. The Las Vegas Raiders, who did all the trading away of Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, got all these first-round picks, and really hasn't done hell of shit with them, with a head coach where you have some certainty. But what the hell has Gruden won in his return to NFL coaching after 3 seasons that makes you think he's got it anymore? What has Mike Mayock done as a general manager to show you that he knows how to build a contending team, Russ? Nothing. So why the hell would you put them on the list? Maybe because you get to play in the AFC, so that way you can play in Mahomes' shadows for the rest of your career? Maybe it's the appeal of being able to play in Vegas? That doesn't seem to really wash with who you portray yourself to be, with your family and your wife Sierra and all this other garbage. And then the Chicago Bears. Like, really? You're putting the Chicago Bears as one of the 4 teams? Are you insane? I can even put the Dolphins on the list. Like, I would get that. But the Chicago Bears? Another somewhat cap-strapped team, whose ownership is the fucking McCaskey family. You really want to come to an organization where you got, yuck, Goofy George here running the show. And you got Bean Counting Ted trying to crunch all the numbers and see if they really make sense now. We could try and invest more money into this Soldier Field renovation and put a retractable roof on there and say that extra $80 to $100 million in cost will return us many times over that money in the years to come with the big events we can host, like the Final Four and WrestleManias and etc. But we're going to go open air because Bears football. So we're going to take a big stadium, a UFO, and drop it in there like a big shit in the Roman Coliseum toilet bowl. And Bears fans will buy it. That's the organization you want to fucking come to? Like, is anybody really asking the question here for Russell Wilson? If you want to potentially get out of Seattle because you have friction with Pete Carroll, first I would ask the Seattle Seahawks, who would you rather invest in? The quarterback that's going to turn 33 this year or the head coach that's almost 70? I know what my answer is, and it wouldn't be the head coach that's almost 70. Pete Carroll might be a youthful guy and have lots of energy and everything else, but 70 is 70, dog. How much longer he really going to do it? There's a much greater chance that you would have Russell Wilson for the next 5, 7, 10 years than you're going to have Pete Carroll. So if Russ gives you an ultimatum that it's one guy or the other, then Pete's got to go. Carroll's got to go, period. Because the second you trade away Russell Wilson, especially if you don't have a really solid replacement plan in the works, you're going to go right back to being an irrelevant organization again like you have been for so many years of your existence. But the Chicago Bears? Like, what the hell is driving that? And even just the teams on this list in general. I've talked about each of these 4 teams and just how stupid this is. And you've seen some people talking about, I think Black Sports Online and others were talking about some of the influence or impact that Sierra could be having on this push and this decision. That wouldn't be a fucking surprise at all. Because when you look at the teams that he's choosing and he's saying that he's open to and that's it, like this screams of you've got somebody else as a puppet master pulling the strings, whether it's her or whether it's their representation, which I think is CAA, if it was one of them doing that. Like, that wouldn't surprise me because this is not very logical. It just isn't. Why would you restrict yourself? And if you are, why in the fuck would you choose those 4 teams of all of them? And if anything, I would look at a Russell Wilson and I would say, those are the teams you chose. If anything, that makes me less inclined to want to bring you in because that makes me question what your priorities really are. And for the Bears fans that are getting mad at me and say, well, you're just always negative about everything. 3.5 decades. The fuck is there to be positive about? You idiots. Like, seriously. So you talk about trading for a Russell Wilson. Okay, what are you going to do with that? Russ is an elite quarterback, yes, but sometimes he's his own worst enemy. And you always hear about how Seattle can't protect him. You know, sometimes the problem with the protection is not the offensive line or the scheme. It's Russell Wilson. He gets all scatterbrained in the pocket. He breaks down his protection. That's on Russ. And you think that's going to get any better in Chicago? You talk about bringing him into a situation? The Bears aren't any better of a situation. Similar. Now you bring Russell Wilson in, they might win a couple of more games and basically be in the same fucking spot that the Seahawks were. Because now you're talking about tying yourself to a quarterback with a massive contract for the next few years and leave it to the Chicago Bears to get in desperation mode and trade for a quarterback that's already in damn near his mid-30s. I know he's 32, but 33, I think, in November. You know, it certainly probably has plenty of shelf life left on his career. But leave it to an organization like the Bears to get desperate and dumb and give up a crap ton of resources for a guy that even if he has a lot of years left, you're still looking at 7, 8, or 10. Instead of trying to find that guy that you can have for 15 or 20. It's just not sensible to me. Now, obviously, if you are the Chicago Bears, you don't have a choice. You have to pursue this. Bears fans, you have to get interested in this, I suppose, until you realize it doesn't happen. And then you move on to the next quarterback that they potentially would be attached to, because it's going to be a never-ending vicious cycle until something actually happens. But I just can't imagine the Seahawks trading him this year. There's a lot of salary cap implications. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Like, crazier things have happened, stranger things have happened, and you could look back at this video in 4 or 5 months and call me a clown because I was absolutely wrong. That not only did he get traded, but it was the Chicago Bears that he went to. But even then, when I look at that list, like, the Bears could be no better than third. And at least if you went to New Orleans, you get to play under Sean Payton. Why the hell would you want to go play under Matt Nagy? That sounds like other forces driving football decisions. And when those things happen, it usually goes really, really poorly. If there is that big of a rift with Russ and the Seahawks, like he wants more say-so, he wants more power, I get it, then make a choice, him or the other guys. And if it comes down to him or Pete Carroll, you should be choosing Russell Wilson 100 out of 100 times. You know, but also for Bears fans or fans of other teams that are thinking about wanting to trade for him. You've seen several players, especially from that Seahawks defense, that have had some very interesting things to say about Russ and don't always necessarily paint him in the brightest and best light. Sometimes that could be pettiness and jealousy. That could be guys wanting to blame him for things that they screwed up or they did wrong, and that certainly is true. But when you see several people weighing in like that, where there's smoke, there's some type of fire. And they're calling him a phony, baloney, fraud, and other bullshit, like, you need to pay some attention to that, because they would know better than all of us. But it's just really weird to say that you'd be open to trade to these teams, but you haven't asked for a trade. I don't get this. Like, maybe it happens. And maybe things come crumbling down quickly in Seattle, but I just can't really see an end game that makes sense for them to trade Russell Wilson in 2021. You know, and if you're a Cowboys fan, like, how much of an upgrade is Russell Wilson over Dak Prescott really? Like, really, truly. You know what I mean? Like, if you're the Saints, how could you possibly even make that deal work? I don't see from a salary cap standpoint how you would be able to make it work. If you're the Raiders, that could make sense, but then you got to figure out what you're going to get in return for Derek Carr. And since teams are going to know that you're desperate to deal him, you're not going to get as much back for him as you would have if you had traded him first, let's say. And then you look at a team like the Chicago Bears, like, what's the price? Like, what's the market for trading for a Russell Wilson? How much do you have to give up? You're not looking at a Deshaun Watson-sized package. You most certainly shouldn't be, because you've got to factor in the age. It's one thing to trade for a guy like Deshaun at the beginning of his mid-20s, you're talking about a Russell Wilson that's closer to his mid-30s than he is 29. Like, certainly you're giving up at least one first-round pick, but do you really want to give up two? And if you say, well, it's a first and a second and a conditional second the following year that could come into a first, okay, then you still got to deal with the problem of how do you build around Russell Wilson? Now you're adding a lot more in terms of contract, in terms of cap space allocation to the quarterback position that you already don't have to the nearly the same degree that you've built this mediocre roster, this mediocre performing team with. And now you've got a defense that is going to potentially be on the decline. You know, it is a roster that is not getting any younger. It doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom, but how big is your window with Russell Wilson? Like, how long do you really think you're truly going to be a contender with Russell Wilson? And let's be clear, Russ is not better than Aaron Rodgers, so you're still going to be looking up at Aaron Rodgers in that division. And do you really feel the Chicago Bears team is that infinitely better compared to the Green Bay Packers? I certainly don't think so. And if you do, what the fuck are you smoking? What the hell have you been watching for the past almost 3 decades? Yeah, I don't know if I buy this one. Where there's smoke again, there could certainly be fire. If you're a Bears fan, I understand the appeal. You get a 7-time Pro Bowl quarterback, Super Bowl champion. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, been a consistent winner in Seattle. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I get it. And in theory, you should not have to give up the same type of package that you would to get a Deshaun Watson. And you could say that is potentially very appealing. So, I get it. I understand it. But don't you kind of question the judgment? Like, put aside your Bears bias bullshit of, well, why wouldn't you want to be? You could come here and be a hero if you want it all. Right, put that aside. Assume that doesn't matter one fucking bit. Why in the hell would this guy choose the Chicago Bears to play under Matt Nagy? I mean, really? If you're Russell Wilson, why the hell would you want to come to this? And you're a Bears fan, you should damn good and well know better than anybody else why the hell Russell Wilson would want no part of this shit show. And if that ends up being where he goes, then that is certainly more non-football factors and non-football decisions leading to that as opposed to actual football-related decisions, which should be the priority here. You cannot tell me, when you look at that list of that 4 teams, that the Chicago Bears are option number 1. The Raiders are at least in Vegas. They're a new team. You've got a coach there that's still going to be there for years, so there's stability. The Bears, you're talking about a lame duck coach, lame duck general manager, or even worse, if they made a trade for Russell Wilson, they're getting a contract extension. That means you're tied to Nagy and Pace for several more years. And at least with the Cowboys, as much of a shit show as that organization has been under Jerry for the past 2+ decades, at least you could say they're the Cowboys. They're America's team. They are the highest of high-profile teams. And for a guy like Russell Wilson that wants to clearly be a star and wants to be high-profile, why in the hell would he choose Chicago over fucking Dallas? That makes absolutely no sense at all. Makes me wonder just how true and accurate all of these reports are, but I could certainly see it. We've been hearing some rumblings in recent weeks that Russell might eventually want out of Seattle. But if you're Russ, like, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it, and you might not be happy with the decision that you make. If you're the Seahawks, if it comes down to Pete Carroll or Russell Wilson, wish Pete Carroll good luck in his future endeavors. Don't be idiots. If you're another team and you're hearing rumblings about Russell Wilson wants to pull some LeBron James type of power trip and he wants to have more say-so over personnel in the organization, that would also give me great pause because, no, I don't want the quarterback fucking dictating personnel decisions to me. That's not his role. That's not his job. His job is to go out there and be the best quarterback that he could possibly be. You would love to get his input. You would love to get his thoughts potentially, but you don't want him having true swagger and say-so and authority over things. Like, that's stupid. So, I'm just still, like, flabbergasted that, and maybe that's what's giving a lot of Bears fans hope, and they are going to buy into this hook, line, and sinker. Because they're going to see something, 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 names. Russell Wilson would go to Chicago Bears. Everything else is irrelevant after that. Oh my God, Russell's going to cook in Soldier Field. We can forget about how that stupid stadium looks like a UFO, took a shit in a Roman Coliseum toilet bowl because Russell Wilson is going to cook in Chicago. All right. So should we start the clock now until we get to the Dak Prescott rumors? Or maybe the Sam Darnold rumors? Or we start walking back the expectations to the Ryan Fitzpatrick and Gardner Minshew rumors? Like, how long until we get to that? Because we've been going through a whole cycle here, Bears fans. Like, aren't you exhausted with this at this point? I know I sure the hell am.